In 1865, Tennessee settlers were terrorized by the Bell Witch. The year is 1865. John Bell staggers out of his Tennessee farmhouse at 3 in the morning, clutching his throat. His daughter Betsy screams from her bedroom window. Blood trickles from John's ears, not from a wound, but from the pressure of invisible hands squeezing his skull. His wife Lucy watches in horror as her husband collapses to his knees, gasping one word, "It's here." By dawn, John Bell will be dead. The doctor will find no cause, no poison, no disease, just a peculiar smell in the room, like sulfur and burnt hair. And on John's lips, the coroner will discover strange burns as if he'd swallowed fire itself. But here's what makes this case unlike any other in American history. John Bell's death was witnessed by dozens of people. They saw him die. They heard the voice that laughed as he took his final breath. The voice that announced loud enough for everyone to hear, "I gave old Jack a big dose of something that fixed him." Who or what had just murdered a man in front of his entire family and community? This is the story of the Bell Witch. And by the time we're done, you'll understand why even Andrew Jackson, the 7th President of the United States, refused to spend a second night on the Bell property telling his men, "I'd rather fight the British again than face that thing." But the death? That comes later. Because what happened to the Bell family over 4 years is so much worse than a single murder. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Before we dive deep into one of America's most documented supernatural cases, I need your help for just a moment. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button. It genuinely helps more people discover these mysteries. And here's something I love doing. Drop a comment telling me what country you're watching from. Seriously, I read every single one, and it's incredible seeing our community spread across the world. Last video, we had viewers from 47 different countries sharing their own local legends. We're working toward 150,000 subscribers, and honestly, every comment, every share gets us closer to making this channel sustainable so I can bring you even deeper, more researched content. Think of it this way. YouTube's algorithm sees your engagement and says, "Oh, people actually care about historical mysteries," and then pushes our videos to more curious minds like yours. You're literally building this community with me. All right, let's get back to Tennessee. Because what started as strange noises in the walls became a 4-year nightmare that would change American folklore forever. Robertson County, Tennessee, 1817. 2 years after Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo, 4 years after Tecumseh's death ended Native American resistance in the South. America is expanding, healing from the War of 1812, and families like the Bells are carving out prosperous farms from the wilderness. John Bell is not some superstitious backwoods farmer. He's respected, a landowner with over 300 acres along the Red River, an elder in the Red River Baptist Church, a man whose word carries weight in the community. His wife, Lucy, is known for her sharp mind and business sense. Their daughter Betsy, just 12 years old in 1817, is by all accounts a bright, cheerful girl with copper-red hair and a laugh that neighbors remember decades later. The Bell farm sits in rolling hills where morning mist clings to the tobacco fields like cotton. Slave quarters line the eastern property because, yes, this is Tennessee in 1817, and that brutal reality frames everything that follows. The farmhouse itself is large, well-built, 2 stories with a wide porch where John likes to sit in the evenings, smoking his pipe and watching the sun bleed orange across his land. Their neighbors include the Johnstons, the Gunn family, and a man who will become crucial to this story, James Johnston, whose daughter would later give the most detailed testimony of the events. This is a tight-knit community. People know each other's business. They gather for church every Sunday. They help with harvests. They witness each other's lives. So when something strange begins, there's no keeping it secret. It starts in the summer of 1817 with something John sees in his cornfield. He's inspecting the crops one August afternoon, the kind of thick heat that makes the air shimmer when he notices an animal between the rows. At first, he thinks it's a dog, but as he gets closer, the proportions are wrong. Too large. The head is massive, almost bear-like, but the body is lean, wrong, sitting on its haunches like it's waiting for him. John Bell is not a fearful man. He's killed bears. He's fought in skirmishes with Creek warriors. He raises his rifle and fires directly at the creature from maybe 20 yards away. Impossible to miss. The animal doesn't react, doesn't flinch, just sits there watching him. John fires again. the creature simply fades, not runs away, not collapses, fades, like morning mist touched by sun. John tells no one, not yet, because how do you explain something like that without sounding like you've been drinking? But that night, the knocking starts. Betsy wakes first. Light knocking on the outer walls of the house. Tap, 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 rhythmic, moving around the perimeter. Her brothers, John Jr., Drury, and Jesse, wake their father. The bellmen grab rifles and lanterns, rushing outside. Nothing. No footprints in the soft dirt around the foundation. No animals fleeing. Just the sound of late summer insects and the distant call of an owl. They go back to bed. The knocking resumes, louder this time, more insistent. When they rush out again, it stops the instant they open the door. This continues for weeks, every night. The pattern evolves. Scratching joins the knocking, something dragging across the wooden walls. The family slaves report hearing chains rattling near their quarters. Lucy Bell begins finding objects moved in the kitchen. Small things. A butter churn turned backward. Kitchen knives arranged in a circle on the table. The sounds enter the house. Now it's in the walls. Scratching, gnawing like rats, John thinks. Though he's never had rats before, he tears open wall sections. Nothing. The wood is solid, untouched. But the gnawing continues, sometimes seeming to follow him from room to room. Then it finds Betsy's room, October 1817, 3 months into the haunting. The family has started calling it their family trouble when discussing it with neighbors because the full truth sounds insane. Betsy is now experiencing something the others are not. She wakes to the sensation of something pulling her hair, not gently, violently. Her screams bring the family running. They find her sitting upright in bed, her head jerked backward by invisible hands, her hair actually moving, actually being pulled straight up as she shrieks. Lucy grabs her daughter. The pulling stops. Betsy collapses into her mother's arms, sobbing. There are red marks on her scalp. "It was cold," Betsy gasps. "Mama, the hands were so cold." For the next week, the attacks on Betsy escalate. Slapping sounds echo from her room, followed by her cries. The family rushes in to find red handprints appearing on her cheeks and arms, actual prints. Lucy counts the fingers. 5. Normal human hand. But there's no one there. Betsy begins sleeping in her parents' room. It doesn't help. The entity follows her. One night, the entire family watches as Betsy is lifted 6 inches off her bed, her nightgown pressed down as if invisible hands grip her shoulders, then dropped back down. She's unconscious when it releases her. John Bell makes a decision. He confides in James Johnston, his most trusted neighbor. James brings his wife and grown sons. They need witnesses. They need this documented, because John is beginning to fear for his daughter's sanity. Or her life. The Johnston family arrives for dinner on a cold November evening. Lucy has prepared venison and cornbread, and the conversation is strained. How do you casually mention that your house is under assault by something you cannot see? They don't have to. After supper, as they sit in the parlor, it announces itself. A scratching sound runs along the wall behind James Johnston's head. He jerks around. Everyone has frozen. Then it happens again, slower this time, almost playful, scratching from floor to ceiling, moving in a deliberate line. "Lord have mercy," James whispers. Then the voice speaks for the first time. It's faint, weak, almost like someone whispering through a tiny gap in the walls. No one can make out the words, but it's definitely a voice. Multiple people are hearing it. This is not imagination. This is not hysteria. John Jr., the eldest son, stands up and addresses the wall directly. "Who are you? What do you want?" The scratching intensifies, faster, angry, then stops abruptly. For a long moment, there's only the sound of the fire crackling in the hearth and Lucy's quick breathing. Then Betsy begins to choke. She's sitting in her chair, and suddenly she's gasping, clawing at her throat. Lucy screams and runs to her, but Betsy is turning purple, her eyes bulging. Drury Bell grabs his sister and tries to help her breathe, but it's like an invisible hand has closed around her windpipe. If you're still watching this and your heart is racing, drop a emoji in the comments, because this is just the beginning. The attack lasts maybe 20 seconds, though it feels like an eternity. Then Betsy sucks in a huge breath and collapses against her mother, sobbing. On her neck, red marks appear. Finger marks, thumb on one side and 4 fingers on the other. James Johnston has seen enough. He tells John, "We need to bring in the church elders. Whatever this is, it's beyond us." Over the next month, the voice grows stronger. It begins to sing. Hymns at first, perfect renditions of church hymns in a woman's voice. Then it quotes scripture, long passages from the Bible, word perfect. The family will be eating dinner, and suddenly a voice from the ceiling recites entire chapters from Genesis. The community is now involved. Word has spread, despite the Bells' attempts at privacy. Every Sunday after church, neighbors approach with advice, theories, offers to help. Most are respectful, some are skeptical. A few suggest that Betsy herself is somehow causing this through witchcraft, a whisper that devastates the family. The church forms a committee, 4 elders, including James Johnston and a man named Frank Miles, agree to spend several nights at the Bell home to document and pray over whatever is happening. They arrive prepared with Bibles, holy water, and the conviction that faith will protect them. The entity mocks them. On the first night, as Frank Miles begins to pray aloud, the voice interrupts him. It's clear now, loud. A woman's voice, though sometimes it shifts to a harsh whisper or a deep masculine growl. It finishes Miles' prayer before he can, word perfect, then laughs. "Your prayers mean nothing here," it says. Frank continues, his voice shaking but determined. The temperature in the room plummets. Everyone can see their breath now, though it's a mild winter night and the fire is roaring. Then objects begin to move. A chair slides across the floor. The Bible flies from Frank's hands and slams into the wall. "Leave," the voice commands. One of the elders, a man named Williams, stands and shouts, "In the name of Jesus Christ, we command you to depart." Laughter, cold, cruel laughter that seems to come from everywhere at once. "I'm not going anywhere," the voice responds. "I am here for John Bell. I will torment him until his death. And the little girl, sweet Betsy, she's mine too." Lucy Bell faints. Betsy is already cowering in the corner, tears streaming down her face. The entity then demonstrates its power by accurately describing events happening miles away. It tells them that at this exact moment, James Johnston's cattle have broken through his fence and are in his neighbor's wheat field. 2 days later, James confirms it. It happened exactly when the entity said it did. The being can see beyond the house. It knows things, private things. It begins revealing secrets, affairs, hidden debts, sins. It tells John Bell that his neighbor Thompson stole money from the church fund 3 years ago. Later, Thompson confesses unable to live with his guilt after the entity exposed him. This thing, whatever it is, has knowledge beyond human capability, and it's using that knowledge as a weapon. By early 1818, the Bell Witch, as the community has started calling it, has become the most discussed phenomenon in Tennessee. News spreads to Nashville. Stories appear in newspapers. People travel from neighboring counties just to witness the haunting. The entity seems to enjoy the attention. It speaks to visitors, answering questions, telling jokes, sometimes even being helpful. It will locate lost items. It will warn of approaching storms. But always, it returns to tormenting John Bell and Betsy. The attacks on John intensify. He begins experiencing facial paralysis. His tongue swells grotesquely in his mouth, making speech impossible for hours or even days at a time. The entity laughs during these episodes, calling him Old Jack in a mocking voice. "Look at Old Jack," it will say as John struggles to eat, his face twisted and numb. "Can't even close his mouth. How does it feel, Jack?" John's health deteriorates rapidly. He develops a persistent cough, loses weight, his hands shake constantly. Doctors find no medical explanation. One physician from Nashville examines him thoroughly and concludes, "If I didn't know better, I'd say he was being poisoned slowly." But there's no poison I know of that creates these specific symptoms. Wait until you hear what happened next, because the entity reveals something about itself that changes everything. One evening in March 1818, with a room full of witnesses, including several prominent Nashville citizens, someone asked the entity directly, "Who are you? Why are you doing this?" The voice responds, and what it says will be recorded in multiple testimonies and journals. "I am the spirit of Kate Batts. Kate Batts, a neighbor of the Bells, a woman very much alive, living just 4 miles away. She's known in the community as eccentric, difficult, prone to cursing and threats. Years earlier, she and John Bell had a bitter dispute over a land deal involving a slave transaction. Kate believed John cheated her. She'd publicly cursed him, saying he'd pay for his wickedness. Now, this entity claims to be her spirit, somehow attacking him while she sleeps. But that doesn't make sense. How can someone's spirit haunt while their body still lives? The visitors ride to Kate Batts' farm and question her. She denies everything, seems genuinely confused by the accusations, though she admits she still believes John Bell wronged her. The entity changes its story the next day. When confronted with Kate Batts' denial, it laughs. "I'm not Kate Batts. I lied. Why would you believe a thing like me?" It offers new identities. It claims to be a Native American spirit, angry at settlers. Then it claims to be multiple spirits, 4 different voices, all distinct, speaking over each other. One says it's the ghost of a woman murdered on the property long ago. Another says it's a demon. Another claims to be a poltergeist drawn by Betsy's emerging womanhood. The truth is, no one knows what it is. It refuses to stick to one story. It contradicts itself deliberately, seeming to enjoy the confusion. What it's consistent about is its hatred for John Bell. One night it announces, "I will kill John Bell. I have decided he will die, and I will be at his funeral laughing." Lucy begs it to reconsider. Betsy, despite her own torment, pleads with it to leave her father alone. The entity responds with a strange mixture of cruelty and affection. It's cruel to John, but to Lucy, it's almost kind. It brings her fresh hazelnuts, manifesting them out of thin air and dropping them in her lap. It quotes poetry to her. It tells her she deserves a better husband. Lucy, exhausted and terrified, doesn't know how to respond to these twisted gifts. To Betsy, the entity is possessive. It speaks to her constantly, sometimes gently, sometimes violently. It seems to have opinions about her life. When a young man named Joshua Gardner begins courting Betsy, the entity erupts in rage. Joshua Gardner is a handsome young farmer, well regarded in the community. He's genuinely in love with Betsy, and she with him. They begin meeting after church, taking walks under her brother's supervision. It's innocent, sweet. The entity hates it. During one of Joshua's visits, the voice screams at him, "Leave her alone! She's not for you!" Objects fly across the room. A chair nearly hits Joshua. He leaves, shaken, but returns the next week. He's brave. He's committed. This continues for months. Joshua courting Betsy, the entity attacking him verbally, sometimes physically. Once, Joshua's horse throws him on the way to the Bell farm. No reason. The horse just bucks wildly as if stung by bees. Joshua breaks his arm in the fall. The voice laughs about it that evening. "I made his horse throw him. Tell him to stop coming or next time I'll break his neck." But here's what makes this even more heartbreaking. Betsy loves Joshua. And there are moments, quiet moments, when the entity speaks to her gently, almost lovingly, and Betsy feels confused. Is she being haunted, or is something trying to protect her in its own twisted way? The psychological toll is immense. Betsy begins having episodes where she seems to leave her body. She'll speak in different voices. She'll relay information she couldn't possibly know. Is the entity possessing her? Or has the constant torment fractured something in her mind? Modern psychology might call it dissociative identity disorder brought on by severe trauma. But in 1818, all they know is that sweet Betsy Bell is changing before their eyes. April 1820. 3 years into the haunting, Andrew Jackson, war hero and future president, hears about the Bell Witch while in Nashville. Jackson is not a man who spooks easily. He's curious, skeptical, and announces he's going to visit the Bell farm to investigate this nonsense. Jackson and his men set out in a wagon loaded with supplies for several days' stay. They're joking about ghost stories, confident this will be easily explained as fraud or mass hysteria. They never make it to the house. About a mile from the Bell property, on a clear, dry day, their wagon stops. Just stops. The horses are pulling, the wheels are turning, but the wagon won't move forward. It's as if they've hit an invisible wall. Jackson's men climb down, inspect the wheels, check for obstructions. Nothing. The wagon simply will not move, though there's no physical reason for it. Then they hear the voice, clear as day, a woman's voice from the empty air. "All right, General, let the wagon go. I'll talk to you tonight." The wagon immediately rolls forward normally. Jackson, according to his men's later testimony, goes pale. His exact words, "I'd rather fight the British than deal with this." They continue to the house. John Bell welcomes them graciously, though he looks terrible, gaunt, trembling, obviously ill. That night, the entity performs for Jackson and his men. It speaks to each of them by name, so though they've never been to the property before, it tells them details about their lives that should be private. One of Jackson's men, a self-proclaimed witch layer who brought special equipment to expose the fraud, is singled out for particular abuse. The entity mocks him mercilessly. It slaps him. Visible slaps that leave red marks on his face. It yanks his nose, pulls his hair. The man, terrified and humiliated, begs Jackson to let him leave. At dawn, Jackson and all his men depart. Jackson allegedly said, "I saw nothing there that I can explain. I wish to see nothing like it again." Can you imagine being in their position, traveling to investigate a haunting, and having something invisible assault you, speak to you, know your secrets? Comment below if you'd have the courage to stay even one night. But while Jackson escaped after one night, the Bell family has no escape. This is their home, their farm, their life, and John Bell is dying. By December 1820, John can barely walk. The facial paralysis is constant now. He has seizures. He can't eat solid food. Lucy and Betsy care for him around the clock, trying every remedy, every doctor, every prayer. The entity has stopped being cruel to him and now just watches, waits. On December 19th, 1820, John Bell falls into a stupor. He's conscious but unresponsive. Drury discovers a small vial in the medicine cabinet that no one recognizes. Dark liquid, unfamiliar. "What is this?" he asks his mother. The voice answers from the air. "I gave old Jack a big dose of that last night, which fixed him." Drury immediately assumes it's poison. To test it, he gives a drop to the cat. The cat convulses and dies within minutes. John Bell dies that night. The entity, true to its word, is at the funeral. Witnesses report hearing it singing loudly during the service, cheerful, mocking hymns. It's the most well-attended funeral in Robertson County's history, partly to mourn John Bell, partly to see if the entity will actually appear. It does. Over 100 people hear the voice singing. The preacher has to pause multiple times as the voice interrupts him. After John's death, the activity decreases dramatically. The entity speaks less frequently, it still harasses Betsy occasionally, but the violence stops. It's as if John Bell was the true target all along, and now that he's dead, the entity is satisfied? Tired? 3 months later, in March 1821, the voice announces it's leaving. "I'm going now," it says to the Bell family one evening. "I'll return in 7 years." Lucy asks it, "Please never to return." The voice laughs, but not unkindly. "I will return to see little Betsy one more time." Then silence. Complete silence. For the first time in 4 years, the Bell house is quiet. No knocking, no scratching, no voices. It's disorienting, almost eerie in its absence. Betsy, now 17, tries to rebuild her life. Joshua Gardner, who has waited faithfully, asks her to marry him. She says no. She can't explain why, even to herself, but the entity's obsessive attention has left her feeling claimed, owned. She can't give herself to Joshua while feeling like she belongs to something else. Joshua is heartbroken. He moves to Kentucky. They never see each other again. Betsy eventually marries another man, Richard Powell, her former school teacher. It's not a love match like Joshua would have been. It's safe, practical. Richard is much older, established, and perhaps most importantly, he wasn't around during the worst of the hauntings. 7 years pass, 1828. The entity returns, as promised, but only for 2 weeks. It speaks to Lucy Bell, now a widow. It mostly asks about the family. How are the children? How is Betsy? It seems almost nostalgic. When Lucy asks it to leave and never return, it agrees. "I will visit one more time," it says, "in 107 years to a descendant of this family." Then it's gone, this time permanently, at least as far as the direct Bell family is concerned. So what actually happened? Over 200 years later, we're still debating. The skeptical explanation focuses on Betsy herself. She was 12 when it started, right at the edge of puberty. Poltergeist activity is statistically associated with adolescent females experiencing stress or trauma. The theory suggests Betsy unconsciously manifested the phenomena through psychokinetic energy. The entity's obsession with her, its knowledge of local affairs, its violence toward her father, all could point to a deeply troubled girl expressing rage and fear she couldn't otherwise voice. But this theory struggles with the witness testimony. Over 100 people, many of them respected citizens, educated men, experienced phenomena directly. They heard the voice. They saw objects move. Andrew Jackson was not a man prone to delusion. How do you explain the entity's knowledge of events happening miles away, confirmed later as accurate? The supernatural explanation is more straightforward. It was exactly what it appeared to be: a malevolent spirit, demon, or witch's curse that targeted the Bell family for reasons unknown. Perhaps the land deal with Kate Bats really did trigger a curse. Perhaps Native American spirits resented the settlers. Perhaps something dark was already on that land long before the Bells arrived, and building their home awakened it. There's a third possibility, darker and stranger. Some researchers have suggested that John Bell himself was the source. Not consciously, but what if he had some form of shamanic ability he didn't understand? What if guilt over something in his past, perhaps related to his treatment of the enslaved people on his property or his business dealings, manifested as an external entity that punished him? The entity's knowledge of local affairs could be explained if it was actually John's own unconscious mind, aware of far more than his conscious self realized. We'll never know for certain. The original Bell homestead is gone, though the land still exists. It's called the Bell Witch Cave now, a tourist attraction where visitors report strange feelings, equipment malfunctions, and occasional voices. The Bell descendants scattered across America. Most changed their names, wanting distance from the story. Betsy Bell Powell died in 1888 at age 72. She gave a few interviews late in life, always maintaining that everything in the story was true. She never provided a satisfying explanation, only saying, "Whatever it was, it knew us, it knew everything about us, and it hated my father with a passion I still don't understand." The entity's promised return in 1935 is disputed. Some Bell descendants claim to experience strange phenomena that year, but nothing like the original haunting. No documented witnesses, no verification. Maybe it forgot, maybe it lied, maybe it was never real at all. But here's what we know for certain. This story changed American folklore. The Bell Witch is the only documented haunting in American history where a spirit allegedly caused a death. It's been investigated by everyone from skeptics to paranormal researchers to historians. The testimonies were recorded by multiple sources, including educated men with no reason to fabricate. Something happened on that farm in Tennessee, whether it was supernatural, psychological, or something we still don't have words for. That's for you to decide. What's your theory? Poltergeist, demon, elaborate hoax, collective hysteria, or something else entirely? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And I want to know, do you have similar legends from your country? I see viewers from all over the world here, and I'd love to hear about your local haunting stories. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. This was a deep dive, I know, but the Bell Witch case deserves the full treatment. If you enjoyed this, you're going to love our next video about the Dyatlov Pass incident, where 9 experienced hikers died under impossible circumstances in the Russian wilderness. Click that thumbnail when it pops up on your screen. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, but stay open to the possibility that there are things in this world we don't yet understand. And maybe, just maybe, some of those things are watching us right back.